Daredevil just became something else. And I didn't get here because I had some nice clean thesis while I was watching. I got there because these two episodes kept doing something that should have pushed me away, and it didn't. I could feel the cuts. I could feel where the episodes were skipping over the small scenes that usually make the big scenes land. A realization, a reaction, a decision beat, the little turn in the timeline where a character stops being one thing and becomes another. These episodes keep shoving some of that off. Now, normally that loses me. Here it didn't. And that's what sent me back into the material. Because I was like, wait a minute, why am I still this locked in when I can feel the show cheating? It's because this isn't really a Daredevil show anymore. It's Matt and Fisk.
He's back. It is a ride. Sit down, watch the show. I am so excited to talk about this with you guys.
And it's sort of the greatest thing ever. What's up, my know-it-alls? Okay, I'm treating episode 2 and 3 as one piece because that's what they feel like. One long story that got split where it had to be split, not where it naturally wanted to breathe. And that really does change the nature of this critique, because I don't think the issue here is that the story is confused. I think the issue is that the cut is crowded. Too much plot, too much setup, too much escalation, too much emotional business. And once that happens, the first thing that usually gets sacrificed is the bridge material, the smaller scenes that convert one state into the next. That's what I think I'm feeling all through the two-parter. Not broken storytelling, compressed storytelling. Does that make sense? I kept resisting the thought because it sounded obvious once you say it out loud. Of course, Fisk matters. Of course, he's central. Yeah, fine. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, I don't think Fisk is just the villain anymore. I think he's one of the two things holding the whole show up. Once that happened, everything around him started really reading differently to me. He's not pressure from the outside anymore. He's one of the main motors now. One of the two load-bearing beams. And I think that's a huge structural shift because it means the show isn't just building conflict anymore. It's balancing itself on two opposing forces and letting the city become the argument between them. That really gives the series weight. It also locks the series into a shape that really may become a problem later, because if Fisk ever leaves the center of this thing, you're not just losing a villain, you're pulling a load-bearing beam out of the house. Right now, though, that commitment's exactly why this works. The Fisk material is really where this sort of snapped into place for me. Because he's not just powerful here. Powerful is I think it's baseline for Fisk, okay? That's nothing. What's different is that he's not just using the system. He wants the system to think like him. That's what Red Rock is, okay? It's not just a prison or a place where he ferrets people away, right? It's a personal impulse dressed up like public order. He used to keep people in a private revenge jail. Now he's found a way to do basically the same thing with official backing and really cleaner language. That isn't ordinary corruption. That's personal appetite rewriting the structure around everybody else. And that line, the one from D'Onofrio,
how many more worlds do you need to conquer?
How many are there? That's where it all landed for me, seriously. Because if he plays that like a normal TV villain, it's just menace. Just a hard line, okay? Just okay, cool, this guy's dangerous, I get it. That's not what he's doing. What hit me about the line is that he doesn't answer like somebody who wants more power. He answers like somebody who doesn't even recognize the idea of enough. There is no enough in him. There's only what's left that isn't mine yet. And that's why I got chills. Not because it's cool, which it absolutely is, but because it strips the whole character down to one ugly truth. He doesn't just want to win. He wants the world to stop resisting him. And once that landed, everything around him got meaner. The task force, the media angle, Red Rock, the boat explosion, none of it felt like separate villain plot anymore. It felt like one man solving the same problem over and over again, which is, how do I make the world stop disobeying me? And then you've got Matt going in the other direction. And I think people are really reading the action all wrong. The question is not whether these fights are as elegant as the old ones, okay? These fights are not built to feel clean. They're built to feel impatient, okay? The older Daredevil fights, even when he was getting wrecked, usually he had some kind of reset in them. Okay, some moment where you could feel him sort of recalculating, recentering, dragging the violence back inside a code. Here, a lot of that is gone. These scenes don't want to reset. The hits land, bodies drop, he moves, the next guy goes, he moves again, the scene keeps driving, it doesn't stop, so you can admire technique, it pushes, so you can feel pressure. And the smiles are the tell. That's not badass hero business to me. That's the show telling me something ugly about where Matt is right now. He's not just angry. I think anger would actually be easier. Angry can still be reluctant. This doesn't feel reluctant. This feels like relief. He's not smiling because fighting is fun. He's smiling because for a second, he doesn't have to argue with himself anymore. For a second, there is no split. The world gives him a problem, and he gets to answer it in the one language that still feels direct to him. That's really why the brutality works. Not because it's more intense in some generic way, because it's telling me Matt's line has moved. He still won't kill you, fine. But everything short of that, he's a lot less troubled by it now than he used to be. Now, put that next to Fisk, okay? And I think that's the real fight. Fisk is figuring out how much darkness he can make legal. Matt is figuring out how much darkness he can live with as long as he still calls it justice. That's also why the Red Rock stuff works so well. The lawyer scene is a great example of that, all right? Matt's old partner, she thinks she doesn't really have anything useful because she was blindfolded when they took her in there. So, Matt and Paige wanted to ask questions and whatnot. Most people would think that, but Matt doesn't need a clean visual memory. He needs scraps.
Well, they had me wear blackout goggles, so I didn't see anything.
I can work with that.
Sound, air, echo, movement, texture. The scene works because it understands that his ability is not just super senses, it's making sense out of what other people throw away. Then, once he gets inside Red Rock and realizes this is a much bigger problem than one guy, it's bigger than one legal abuse, the whole sequence sort of turns on its head. Now, it's not a rescue. Now it's proof. Now Fisk's whole logic is sitting there in concrete form. Not lost, storage, hidden with enemies, paperwork over the top of them. And the action in that section is doing very, very specific work. Okay, Duquesne doesn't just get rescued and hang there like luggage. The second he's loose, he starts acting. Good, the wonder is there because the whole scene is about refusing the other side a reset. If the AVTF gets one stable second to regroup, this turns into a slaughter. So the scene keeps moving, the camera keeps moving, the pressure never gets permission to drop. Now, here's where the cut actually does damage. White Tiger. And I'm not saying the storyline doesn't work. It does. It worked on me hard. Hard enough that I have to be careful not to overpraise it just because it hits me personally, all right? I'm Puerto Rican, I'm from New York. That material is not abstract to me. But the cut hurts it. The show gives us the hurt. It absolutely does. It gives us the setup. all right? But what it doesn't fully give us is the beat where grief starts turning into decision. That's the missing slot. And you can feel it because she disappears for a stretch, then comes back emotionally farther along than I think the cut has actually walked us there. Now, not fully formed, no, but far enough along that I really can feel the skipped step, at least for me. I think that skipped step does real damage, because without that beat, the inheritance starts reading a little less like transformation and a little more like information. The audience is being told, in effect, she has crossed into ownership now, more than we were actually being allowed to live through that sort of crossover with her. I think that's the wound. That kind of arc lives or dies on the internal turn. Not just the tragedy, not just the setup, not just the origin story, the turn, the moment where burden stops being witnessed and starts being accepted. And that's the scene I think we're missing. Maybe it's a quiet aftermath scene, maybe it's a reaction scene, maybe it's a decision scene where she doesn't even say much and the whole point is just that we watch the shift happen. I don't know exactly what shape it had. I mean, you might think that, hey, when she goes to the attorney's office and asks to see the amulet, that's the moment. But I know a job that the scene needed to do. It needed to move her from grief into ownership. And without it, the show asks me to recognize progression more than experience it. There's a smaller version of that problem, I think, really in some of the Matt and Paige material too. There's a couple times the episode clearly decides that it cannot afford the reaction beat, so it skips the setting part and hands you the next pressure point instead. But as an editor, I could feel very clearly the timeline hurrying. Sort of that, the compression that was happening. The, oh my gosh, I'm reaching the end of my allotted time, but there's still material here. That's why I call it necessary editing instead of bad editing. Because bad editing is when the scene doesn't know what it's for. This knows what it's for. That's what makes it frustrating. This feels like an overall episode protecting the wrong things for, I would argue, understandable reasons, to be fair. But the cut is protecting propulsion. It's protecting reveals, protecting the big line of escalation. And what gets sacrificed are the little middle scenes that really make the emotional math land clearly. That's triage. And triage is not failure. I want to make sure that's abundantly clear. But somebody is still bleeding on the table. Does that make sense? That's why I think these drop together too. Once you've made those cuts, the best thing you can do is let the momentum of 1 hour carry the missing support of the other. Split them apart too hard, and the seams probably show a lot more than I'm saying. So yeah, I think there's a roomier version of this material somewhere. And yes, I think we got the version that had to keep moving whether every beat was fully ready or not. And here's the part that kept irritating me, because I would normally punish this harder. I really would. You guys know that. I absolutely would. If another show did this and I wasn't as locked into the core conflict, I think I'd come down on it more. So why aren't I? All right, well, why am I not doing exactly that? I think because the central structure is doing a ridiculous amount of work. That's just real. Matt and Fisk aren't just the two biggest characters anymore. They are the thing holding this entire shape together. And that's really why this survives. Not because the cuts are invisible. They're absolutely not. Okay, don't let anybody try to fool you. And it's not because the missing steps don't matter. They do. It survives because the second those two men become the real center of the show, the whole thing suddenly has enough spine to absorb damage that I think would flatten something weaker or something else that was less established. And yes, if you put those missing beats back in, if you smooth all of that, then this jumps way up for me. All right, I would easily a whole lot more. Trust me. So no, I'm not giving it a pass. I'm saying it got away with it. So there you go. Now you know. If knowing's half the battle, you're halfway to being a know-it-all yourself. What is the know-it-all index for Daredevil Born Again, Season 2, Episodes 2 and 3, Shoot the Moon, and The Scales and the Sword? These episodes are strong because the show finally picked its center and committed to it. Fisk now feels like more than a villain. Matt now feels like more than a hero trying to stay clean. The action's doing character work, not just impact work. The White Tiger storyline, even with the missing step, still lands emotionally, at least for me. But they're not smooth by any stretch of the imagination, okay? These 2 episodes, they're overburdened, and I can feel where the cut wins a practical argument at the expense of a dramatic one. Not because the core idea misses. I think I want to make that really clear. But it's because the material is better than the script it finally had room to take. And that's going to put these 2 at a 7 out of 10 for me. Did the missing step in the White Tiger arc hit you too, or did the momentum sort of carry you past it? Or do you have other problems with the episodes? I would love to hear that. Comment below, let's talk about it, because I feel like there's something to be discussed here. I'm enjoying what the show is doing. I hope you are too, and I would love to hear more about that. But until next time, never forget, everyone loves a know-it-all. Bye, guys.